Welcome to PHP Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 341, a themed episode.
Yeah, and we are back.
Yes, finally.
Back in the studio, which is fantastic. It's a good feeling to be able to actually have our equipment again and be able to sit, next to each other as we're talking. And then for those of you who've kind of suffered through the last several episodes, again, we want to reiterate that our goal with PHP Podcast is to always put out quality content. And sometimes that quality is just the content itself. And sometimes, we always try and make sure that the production quality is also there. But we've been doing a few weeks of remote, and we are still kind of working out the kinks of how our remote system is going to work. So we were doing it on the fly, off my phone and various things. I didn't have good mics and stuff. So be prepared that when we do remote in the future, like more permanently, it's going to be quality. It's going to be great. But again, thank you for those of you who kind of went through that time with us, and welcome back. Welcome back to the Hustler Hangout.
Glad you are here. So this episode, I thought I would talk about the biggest trap for resellers. And the reason I was thinking with this and I was talking to Mike about it was the fact that, right now, as things are interesting, right? And a lot of people on social media are very big on sales are slow. Things are happening. You see a lot of YouTube titles now. Should I quit eBay? Is it just better to get into the 9 to 5? And so I thought it'd be good for us to discuss, what are the traps that resellers get into that causes them to maybe burn out, leave reselling, stay stagnant, not move forward in their business, and overall just be miserable. And here's the thing. Mike and I, from day one, and we're entering the end of our 5 years of PHP Podcast, which means the end of me being a full-time reseller, you selling part-time. And during this whole time, we've always been big about staying positive, keeping positive. We keep it real, but we've always been big about, listen, if reselling becomes something that feels like a chore, or if it's something you're not enjoying, it's okay. It's okay to go from full-time to part-time. It's okay to just walk away too, if you want to walk away. But I feel that these traps end up causing a lot of people to walk away when they shouldn't, or to give up, or just get complacent. So the first one I thought we should discuss is, as you look on social media, you go on Instagram, you go on TikTok, on Facebook, wherever you do your social media, everybody's talking about sales are slow. And so if everybody's talking about it, you just begin to accept it and go, you know what, maybe there's nothing I can do about it. Maybe I should just sit back. Maybe one day things will come back and your business doesn't grow, or you go in the negative, or you begin to really suffer the effects of basically complacence, right? You begin to get inconsistent. It becomes this victim mentality of woe is me. And, it's the market. I can't control the market, which is all true. We can't control the market, but there's a lot of things you can control. And I really feel right now, a lot of people that aren't making sales because they've chosen to accept that they're just not going to be able to.
Yeah. And that's really what it comes down to, is just an understanding of, one, this is a business. Even if you're doing it as a side hustle, maybe it's not as serious of a business for you, but just think of any successful business. And if there's ever a period, maybe a tech company has a new launch of a product, new, software, and there's bugs in it and it's not selling like they thought it would, or whatever the situation is, those companies, the people at the top, have a tremendous amount of pressure on them to figure out what's going on, how to fix it, how to increase the profits so that the next year they're able to fix those problems, to keep PR. Like, there's a huge effort, and they're willing to adapt and change and shift. And the companies that don't do those things, those are the ones that go bankrupt and you don't hear about them in a while. And sure, there are certain companies where, okay, like Netflix came out and so Blockbuster's gone, right? Like, there are shifts and sometimes there are outside things that are outside of your control. But think about it. If you were in the movie rental business, how many companies were able to figure out, like, okay, I guess streaming is the next thing. We got to figure out how to make this work. And so you can't just accept the status quo. You can't just say, hey, sales are down, I guess this is what it is. You do need to figure out ways to adapt, ways to make sure that you are making those sales one way or another, and move forward. So don't get into that complacency. And one of the reasons a lot of times people get into that kind of complacency is because they fall into the trap of being in a negative reseller community. And this is, I've noticed, in pretty much any area of your life. Like, it doesn't matter what area you're talking about, whether it's politics, whether it's like a 9-to-5 type work, whether it's your family. Once you start getting into like negativity and that's all you're looking for, you're doomed. Like you're going to soak it up. Negativity is such a powerful emotion. You hear phrases like, what is it? Sorrow loves company or misery loves company. Yeah. And it's so true. And it's because it's one of those things people can bond over. And it's sad when I see that, where there are people who their main connection to each other is the fact that they're always talking trash about their boss, or they're always talking trash about people around them. And it's such an easy thing to kind of connect and relate on. And so it makes communities that are negative very powerful. People are drawn to them because, hey, this person's upset. They're upset about the same things I'm upset about. It validates you. You get into that feedback loop. And the reality is you're never going to change. And I think it was like a cheesy Tony Robbins thing that I heard like a while back, but it's actually kind of good in a sense. And it went something like, if you were to look around the room right now and look at everything that's brown, like find everything you can think of that's brown, like take a moment to like memorize everything that's brown, close your eyes, and how many brown things can you count? All right. And so you go through and it's like, okay, well, how many green things can you count? And if your eyes are still closed, you might not, maybe one thing, like, wait, I think I saw a green thing. But if you're not looking for positive things, you're only going to see the negative. And if that's what you're focused on, if you're in a reselling community, whether it's social media, whether it's just local friends, maybe it's like a negative Discord group, something like that. And if all you're doing is focusing on the negative, it's going to impact your mentality. It's going to impact your decisions. And you're not even going to see the positive. You're not going to see all the benefits of reselling it. And some of our best episodes that we've had where people have commented like, such a good episode, thank you so much, is where we kind of go through and are just like thankful and list the things we enjoy about reselling, because those types of things remind you of, oh yeah, like there are a lot of benefits. Like this has opened up some doors and okay, maybe sales are slow right now, but I did have that one sale and that allowed me to do this thing. And I've learned more about this. So when you start to see things, and I don't advocate for just like ignorant optimism. I think there's you can go into that other ditch, but I think it's less often people are in that ditch. And if they are, then it's a whole different issue to worry about. But I that's one of the reasons I love our Discord. For those of you who support us on Patreon and are part of our Discord group, it is just a positive community. We have our rants and raves because, let's be honest, like we do need to vent every once in a while, but that's not the focus of what we do. That's not the focus of our Discord. People are there sharing stories. People are there asking questions. People are there celebrating their wins. And I think that's a much healthier place to be, because when you see other people around you winning, I can't tell you how many times I've been like, do I really want to go out garage selling? Do I really want to list? And then I see some of the things people are posting in the Discord and I'm like, man, it's doable. I could do this.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because our Discord, we get new people in there. And so many times we've had new people say, this is the most eBay positive Discord I've ever been in. And I take pride in that, because we've always been big about, listen, there's ups and downs. There's a lot of things we're not going to agree with eBay or Amazon or any platform we're on. But if we let that determine the way we run our business, it's just going to run into the ground. And it's very easy to get caught up in all of that. This is why I stay away from the eBay forums. This is why I stay away from e-commerce bites, comment section, all these places. Like if you want to find these places where people are like, oh, back in 2003, I was making money hand over fist, and now the market's saturated and it's eBay, and eBay doesn't care about us resellers, and they should all go to jail. Like it's just constant negative, and it's extreme negativity, like just obnoxious. And so that's not going to build you up. That's not going to motivate you. That's going to instead cause you to go, you know what? You're right. You're right. There's a reason sales aren't happening. It must be eBay's throttling all my items. And since I'm not promoted at this amount, they're just never going to allow me to have a sale. And because, and you begin to have all these crazy conspiracy thoughts about why you're not having sales, instead of just focusing on the business and going, all right, what am I not doing that is producing sales? Even in a downturn economy, even right now, there are people that are killing it. I've been up and down. Mike has been up and down. There's been others, but there's some weeks that people have been like, wow, this last month I did far better than I did my last 3 months combined. And I'm glad I stuck with it. I'm glad I didn't stay negative. And speaking of our Discord real quick, if you have not yet signed up to support us on Patreon, please do so. Go to patreon.com/PureHustle or go to the link below and just sign up for $5.55 a month. And in supporting us, and we're going to need especially the support in the next few months as we're trying to get a lot of new equipment to make sure that our podcast stays professional. So that would really help. you get a bonus of joining our Discord, a positive, thriving group of resellers. I love it when it's been like a day, like I've been super busy, or I got hit with sickness this past week, and I couldn't really, I was just lurking, and it was great because people are definitely motivating each other, sharing great tips on what to look for, on how to ship, on how to network, or there's like a vintage item and not everybody knows about it, but there's a few people that do, and so everybody's asking questions and people are learning about it. So it's a great thriving community, and one of the things to help you stay out of that trap is joining a Discord by supporting our Patreon, or you can join others. There's plenty of Facebook groups out there that are positive. I haven't heard of many, so there might be, but I haven't heard of many. Now, the other thing here that I think that people get caught in the trap that just ruins their reselling business is they continue to source the same items year after year, expecting the same results. I see this happening so much for, especially like in media. I know a lot of resellers in San Diego that do media. And so they've been doing DVDs for a long time, Blu-ray, video games, LPs, all those different things. And instead of adapting, they continue to try to do the same thing. So right now, for example, DVDs is a brutal market to get into, just brutal. The other day I was searching a garage sale and there's a box of, it was like 300 DVDs, like half of them sealed. And the guy's like, I'll do 100 for all of them. And I'm like, no, I'm not even going to touch that for 100. Right? I might be able to go to the swap and flip all 300 real quick for $1 a piece, but I don't even think I'll be able to get $1 a piece, right? Because the market is flooded. It's not like back in the day where people very highly were looking for DVDs and so on. Everybody can stream everything, right? And so unless you have that unique one, VHS right now, right? VHS is hot. If you find sealed VHS, that is hard to find. And so that's where a person that's been doing media probably should go, you know what? I used to do really well on DVDs for a long time. I used to be able to, buy out wholesale, like pennies on the dollar, make good money. And now I feel like I'm doing more work for a lot less money. And so people get on eBay and on the eBay forums and say, oh, I've been doing media for so long and I just keep losing money and eBay's throwing me and everything has been oversold and there's too many people in the market. And instead of adapting, they just keep doing the same thing. I'm finding that with clothing too, right? Clothing, a lot of the brands 5-6 years ago that used to sell for good money, they just don't. And it's not due to resellers exposing it on YouTube. Just trends change, tastes change.
Yeah. And there's a benefit to that, because if you're willing to adapt, you're willing to look around and learn new things, then your competitors, if they're not adapting, they're still buying the stuff that isn't selling. You might have the corner on a market for a while on a new niche or an old brand of clothes that's now popular until everyone kind of catches on to it. So if you're willing to do the work and put in the work, you could actually benefit from the fact that a lot of people fall into this trap. Another one, this is a big trap that a lot of people fall into, is not doing the bookkeeping. Especially if you start small, you're kind of doing it as a hobby, and you don't really keep track of things. You're not keeping track of how much you're buying items for, how much your costs are, what your shipping supply costs are, all of those things. And it could really put you in a world of hurt, because either one, you're going to get that 1099 from eBay and you're going to have to fill that out. Or two, you're just going to do the right thing even without a 1099. I mean, I got one for this last year, but I got one the year before, and eBay actually sorry, we didn't mean to send these out. But I'm like, no, sweet. Oh, really? This actually helps. I'm going to use it because, that now I know the number that you would be reporting to the IRS, and it's not just me trying to figure out all the numbers myself. But this last year, I didn't get a number from eBay itself. And so I had to kind of do my own thing, right? I had to make sure, okay, all right, I'm going to pull my sale report. I'm going to figure out how much all of my costs were. And then I had to kind of figure out my expenses on my own. I was able to keep a lot of things, but you're really going to be in a world of hurt, because eventually you're going to be doing taxes. The more you're doing this, you're going to build up to the point where either eBay's going to send it to you, or you're going to just do it on your own because it's what you're technically supposed to do. And it gets really tough. I mean, especially I remember looking at okay, I've got stuff that I bought 5 years ago and I don't have receipts for this stuff. And so when it sells, you're kind of playing this weird, so you want to start early. You want to start early and have those receipts, keep your bookkeeping, which is one of the reasons why we use My Reseller Genie. Reseller Genie is, and not that we're just trying to make this a whole advertising show. Every time I talk, I'm like, hey, first our Discord, now My Reseller Genie. But like we talk about the tools that we use, and My Reseller Genie is a great tool for keeping track of all of those things. When you buy things, there's a tier you can purchase where it's automatically going to pull the data from your eBay. You can put in the information, how much you bought things for, and then you just have that information there. And the reality is, and of course, not tax advice. We're not. Well,
you could go to the link below real quick and use our code Pure Hustle all caps for 15% off the first month.
Yeah, use it. Yeah,
We'll just leave it there.
Use My Reseller Genie. You're going to want to use it. So it's not tax advice in the sense of like an audit. From everything I kind of gather, audits are pretty rare. But I'm sure if you're a reseller, the chances are it goes up a little bit because you're in a kind of a trickier market, And so you want to be able to protect yourself and have that data. And so if an IRS agent showed up and you've got all of your My Reseller Genie stuff, like just good to go, you're going to breeze through an audit, as opposed to you're like, well, there was this garage sale and then I don't know, so
I'll just point people to my Instagram stories.
Yeah. Yeah, but even then they're gonna make you do the work. They're gonna say, great, show me the Instagram story for this item.
But here's the thing about bookkeeping. Vast majority of people don't like bookkeeping. Okay. And the thing is, when you're first starting as a reseller, you're not thinking about that. Right. If you're brand new, you're thinking of what bookkeeping. I only make like 100 a week. On a good month in Q4, you made $1,000. Right. You're like, why would I bookkeep? Right. And in the beginning, you don't think about this. Like what happens with a lot of resellers that go full time, they never thought they would be full time. They just started as a part-time seller, and then they realized they can make a little more, and they started making a little more, and they liked it. They went from being able to have, nice date nights to having extravagant date nights, to having nice vacations, to having extravagant vacations, because they kept their full-time job and they started reselling. And the more they learned, the better they became. And what ended up happening is, then when it came to tax time, they didn't do any of their bookkeeping, and they've never experienced a year where they end up owing a lot of money. And the reason they're owing money isn't necessarily because they actually owe that money. They just didn't do the bookkeeping. So now they have several K, and they're like, oh, I don't know if I want to resell anymore, because now that I'm reselling, it's added to, my taxable income. And now I'm like, this isn't worth it to me, because now, yeah, I enjoy all this time, but it's basically like I borrowed money from the government that I have to pay back. But the reality is, if you started bookkeeping and you kept tabs of your cost of goods, how much you spent on shipping supplies, your utilities, your mileage, all those different things that a tax professional would be looking for, by the way, is not financial advice, you'd be in a whole lot of a better place than if you just were willy-nilly. And listen, I'm speaking to myself. I am terrible at it, right? And I need tools to help me going. But I will say, my first 2 years, I ended up getting a bill after the fact of money that I owed because I miscalculated. Why? Because I had a terrible bookkeeping system. And after that, I learned my lesson. I didn't want to pay that much anymore. And it's been nice since then. So definitely, don't get caught in that trap as a reseller that, I barely sell anything. I don't need a bookkeep. It's not going to catch up to me, because it will catch up to you. Now, this next one I find fascinating, because even though I've been reselling for 10 years, 5 years full time, like 12 years in total, I'm always learning about shipping. And there's a lot of people that, you've been reselling for a while, and you're just like, there's nothing more I can learn. Right. I print the labels on eBay. I use USPS free priority boxes. I know that I can modify the non-flat rate boxes. You learn all these things, and then you learn something new. Right. So, for example, I'll give you for myself, I was pretty arrogant, and I used to ship everything flat rate, medium flat rate box, every shoe. Didn't matter what it was. Medium flat rate. And I always saw people doing the shoe boxes, that you could order free from USPS. And one day I was like, I'm going to try it. And sure enough, my shipping expense went from, $14 per medium flat rate to $10, or maybe even less if it was, within California, Nevada, Washington, nearby. And so let's say I sold, 100 pairs of shoes, right, in 1 month, and I saved $4 on each one. That's $400 that I'm saving my bottom line. A new one I also began to pick up in not last year, but like 3 years ago, was shipping shoes in a padded priority. right? Had I not, decided to go, I don't know enough, I would have been losing on that money. So instead of shipping out shoes for $14, I'm not shipping out books for $8.30, shoes for $8.30. Remind, there's this great guy on TikTok. I'm just going to throw it out there. I don't even know if he listens. His name is Wagon Trail Adventures. And this tool, I just learned from him last week, because he always does like, here's what's sold on eBay. And he just shows himself quickly like packing stuff. And most of the stuff I'm like, all right, I know how to do that. I know how to do that. But did you know that if you cut a small triangle at the end of a padded flat rate, it makes it easy to get stuff in there because the vacuum seal isn't there anymore. Right? So it's easier. Instead of you just trying to cram things in, you just cut that little hole and it just slides in there, and then you can tape it after the fact.
Yeah, it's like when you have a water jug or something, and you have like a spout at the top to let air filter through. That makes sense because you're not pushing air in and trying to fill it that way. There's a place for the air to escape.
Mind blowing.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip. I never thought of doing that.
Thank you, Wagon Trail Adventures, for posting that on TikTok.
Yeah. So again, just to reiterate, the trap is falling into it. It could be shipping, but it's a lot of things too. Is just kind of thinking there's no room to grow. There's nothing new to learn, and that you've got it all figured out. And for sure, there is more to learn, and you got to be willing to take that time, be humble. That's a big part of it, and just say, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
I don't know everything.
And so this other trap I'm going to kind of throw in as we throw out our info about our social media is the idea that it's better not to be part of a reselling community because you lose a lot of time on social media. It's not worth it to you. So on. And I believe that's a huge trap, especially now. And, Mike and I have been doing the podcast now for close to 5 years. We have learned far more than we've ever would have learned by trial and error, right? The best part about listening to Pure as a podcast is learning from our mistakes. Right? You don't have to learn from those mistakes. So don't get caught in the trap of like, hey, I'm not going to get on Instagram. I'm not going to get on TikTok. I'm not going to, watch YouTube. I mean, obviously, if you're listening to a podcast, this may not be you at all. But you can get caught in this trap that there's nothing for me to learn from the reselling community online because everybody's just about, talking about how much money they make or just showing their, their biggest sales. But the reality is, there is a lot of that, but there's a lot of tips out there. There's a lot of good resellers out there that are just documenting what they're doing. And as you watch them document what they're doing, you begin to learn. So if you haven't yet, follow us on all social media. We are Pure Hustle Podcast. On Twitter, we are Pure Hustle Cast. You could always give us a call, 619-738-1170. That's 619-738-1170. We do phone calls sometimes of Hustle of the Week. We actually have today, it's not a phone call, it's a voice call onto our Discord.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. You can always shoot us an email at purespodcast@gmail.com. That's purespodcast@gmail.com. And if you're just listening to the podcast, which is great, we're grateful, but you haven't jumped on over to the YouTube, jump on over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, hit that bell notification to be notified about whenever we drop a video. I share a quick story here from one of our listeners. I was at garage sales and Matt, shout out to you. I'm talking about you. And I bring up Matt a lot in the podcast. I don't always mention his name. You've met Matt. He's a full-time reseller in town. And I went to a garage sale and I wanted to buy like these lights and it was $1. And what is the biggest fail you can do when you show up at a garage sale early in the morning and something's only $1? I'm trying to see if Mike can read my mind.
I've got no idea.
All you have is 20s.
Oh, yeah. Gosh.
Right? You're like the first person you show up.
Yeah, how are you not prepared?
Okay, so listen. All right, it was late last night. I didn't break my bills, and so I asked the lady, I'm like, "Do you have a change for 20?" She's like, "No." And I was like, "I really wanted these lights because they're like $1. I could probably flip them for $30 to $40." And it was a slow morning, and so I'm like, "What am I gonna do? I don't want to go all the way to the bank." And sure enough, here comes Matt to the rescue. I was like, I felt really bad having to scrounge for money at the garage sale.
Awkward.
So I'm like, "Hey, Matt, do you have $1?"
Oh my gosh. You didn't even say like, "Hey, can you break a 20?" You're literally there like panhandling so that you can flip stuff. Man,
at least I'm panhandling to make business.
If Pure Hustle Podcast hasn't lost some credibility after this, I don't know what would. Hey, can you give me some money so I could do some flipping?
So anyways, Matt was a good guy. He's like, "Don't worry about the $1." Shout out to you, Matt. Thanks for giving me that dollar, and hopefully I make good profit from that item.
I feel like he should get a share of the profit. Just saying.
Maybe we'll grab breakfast after sourcing one of the mornings or something, you know? So appreciate that. What was I sharing on that? Oh, the reason I was sharing that, I was talking to Matt, and Matt's like, it's so interesting that you guys have, you have thousands of listeners on the podcast side, but you don't have that many, views or subscribers in comparison how big you guys are on the podcast side. And I was like, yeah, it's just because we started as a podcast. So the reason I share this, I want to encourage all of you, if you haven't yet, just jump on over. If we can get to 10K by the end of the year, that's really going to help us out, because that opens a lot of opportunities for us as far as, we can begin to drop merch a lot easier. We also get, higher in the algorithm. It's definitely going to allow us to scale Pures Podcast on the YouTube end. So if you're listening to podcasts, I encourage you, if you haven't yet, come on over to YouTube, just hit that subscribe button. Doesn't mean you have to listen to us just on the YouTube, listen to us on the podcast, but just hit that subscribe button. So Thank you. And on iTunes, if you haven't yet, please leave us an awesome 5-star review. I think we're almost 700, but we've talked a lot about this stuff. So we'll wait till next time to share some reviews.
All right. You ready?
I am ready. Talking about
Come on, hustlers.
Big hustles.
It's the freaking hustle of the week. Yeah, hustle of the week. All right. So our first one.
Are we doing the audio first?
Yeah, let's do the audio first. That's a good idea.
So this is an audio that came in via Discord. And it's pretty awesome that we can do this.
Londo, this is Tim. I go by Tim the Slim on the Discord. My hustle of the week is a bunch of Dungeons and Dragons stuff. I was fortunate enough to be the first one to catch a lot of 10 rule books for the game. They retail for about $50 a piece. I knew I could get about a couple hundred, and he only wanted $50 for them all. So anyway, I'm on the way, and he messages me and says, "Hey, are you interested in some miniatures too?" I said, "Oh yeah, I'd love to take a look." Well, I get there, and I'm expecting just a little toter bag, but no. He is downsizing and has been playing the game since the early 2000s. He had 2 large toolboxes full of them with like sliding drawers and compartments and all labeled, and then just like a burlap sack just full of these things. These were the plastic models from Wizards of the Coast. They're from the early 2000s, and they're just the little figures that you use to play the game. I was pretty floored. I at first glance, I was kind of volume estimating while he's talking, and I'm like, okay, I think there's probably around 800, maybe 1,000 in here. And so I knew I could probably get $1 a piece. So I was thinking 400, maybe 500 was kind of my upper limit without really going through there and looking at them. So asked him what he wanted, and he said $200. I used the awkward silence.
Nice.
And was able to ask him how about 200 for everything, which he accepted. So I got the books and the miniatures for 200. What I ended up doing is I just took them home, and he had them pretty well organized. So I didn't want to do the work of looking up each individual one. I do other nerdy games, but Dungeons and Dragons is not my forte. So I was going to let other people do the work for me. I just lotted them up in groups of 1 to 150 figures. And at final count, he had over 1,200 figures from the game, along with a bunch of random just metal ones from some other games. And I ran 10-day auctions on 11 different lots. The final total was $2,092, and that's after shipping and fees. That's what we brought in. So I made a total of $1,892 profit in that 3 weeks' time. Fantastic hustle for me, and I just want to thank you guys for the real relevant content you keep putting out each week. God bless.
All right, man. I love that. In fact, when
Hey, Mike and Lon.
when Tim posted that originally all the pictures on our Discord, I was like, I'm not gonna lie, I was jealous. I think I even maybe said something about my jealousy in there, and I probably would have done the same. I don't think I would have kept them. I think I would have sold all of them. But I love that he lotted them in lots. In fact, when he posted them, he played like a game in our Discord where it was like, how much do you think I'm going to make for this? Like taking bets, right? So he started all the auctions really low. And the reason I know is he took pictures of like what all the lots kind of look like. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of looked at one of them and I was like, I'm going to stock one of these lots. And so like I typed it in, I found one of the lots. I'm like, okay, this is his lot here. I'm going to follow it and watch it. You know, and maybe if it doesn't go up crazy high price, maybe I'll buy it. No, before long, especially as it's getting close and I'm like, oh, I've got an alert. There's like 4 hours left on this thing. And this lot is already like getting close to like $300. And I'm like, holy smokes. So yeah, he crushed it on those. And I just love the fact that he used some of those techniques we talked about, using kind of the awkward silence, not giving the first number. Cause again, if he would have said, hey, his number was 400 is kind of what he was thinking for everything. If he'd just been like, sweet, would you take 400 for all of this? The guy would have been like, sure. Not realizing the guy would have been happy and was fine with taking just 200 for everything. Yeah. So don't give out that first number. It's a great hustle. And if you're not, no, don't go buy Dungeons and Dragons stuff. Leave it for me.
There you go. I love those because the fact that he also was smart about turning it over quick for a nice profit, and now he's going to be able to cash flow more items, right? So, all right, you want to go?
Sure. All right. Our next one comes from Alex on Instagram. His handle is at Wabz, WABBZ. So found a 200-piece lot of little homies. There's 200 of them at the store that shall not be named.
Do you know what little homies are?
Yeah, weren't they in like the 50 cent machines? Like, wasn't that how you got them, or did you get them in like at like Target and stuff?
I don't remember. I just remember everybody had them when I was growing up. Yeah, they're like little cholos.
Yeah, and they're little plastic ones, right? Yeah. So, 200 of them. Paid $8.99 for them. Sold on eBay in auction for $250, and I think that's the right bet. And going back even to the miniatures, it is not a bad idea to auction stuff like that. Like we're big on the buy it now, best offer. However, if you've got like a whole lot of toys that you're not going to spend the time going through each individual one, listing them, or even doing the research of like how much is this lot worth, set it at a price you'd be okay with taking if it goes at like a minimum number, and then just put it up on auction, because it'll let the market kind of decide what it's worth, especially if you're just not sure, because maybe there aren't lots of that many to kind of compare to. Now, if there's a ton of them, you see like, hey, people sell about 200 little homies all the time, and it seems like it goes for X amount of money, then yeah, maybe put it up for best offer at buy it now at that price. But otherwise, auction is not a bad idea for those types of hauls.
Yeah, and it's very possible that the person that bought them is going to flip them, right? They're going to individually, sell them. And it's okay. It's okay, that you're always selling up. That's usually the way the game works, right? Everything started at some origin. You sell it. Somebody who knows more about you, has a better market, can sell it for more. Then somebody else can sell it for more because they have direct buyers. And so, yeah, little homies. I remember those things from back in the day. Nice sale there, Alex. All right, this comes from Heather, Cosmic Deal Heather, who is a great, supporter of the podcast. If you haven't yet gone over to her YouTube, she makes great videos. She's a real deal reseller. And so Heather came across a Wow Wow Wubsy. Now you might be too young to know Wow Wow Wubsy. See, so in the early 2000s, there were all these new Nick Jr. shows like Dora. There was the Wonder Pets. You know what the Wonder Pets are? Okay, so Wonder Pets are the bolo. Like if you find Wonder Pets toys. So came across a Wow Wow Wubsy used kid's laptop for $3 at the thrift. Did some Terapeak research and saw that only 2 sold in the last year. One used for $50 and one brand new in box for $300. Decided to list on eBay for a high price. Sold the Nick Jr. Wow Wow Wubsy bilingual treehouse laptop for $100 free ship. And I really like this sale because I had been talking recently about 2000s toys are becoming vintage. Like Nick Jr. stuff. Like I'm pretty sure Backyardigans, you probably don't know Backyardigans is, right? You know what your kid's like right now. So think about those things in 20 years are probably going to be worth money. Yep. Right? It's interesting because what's happening is, people are having people that had, kids in the 2000s, or people that were little kids in the 2000s are now in their 20s and getting married and having kids. And they're like, I really liked those toys when I was a small kid. I want to get them for my child. And now they're on the vintage market and now they sell for more than retail. And so, Wow Wow Wubsy, I guess I never thought I'd be saying those words again, being that last time I said those words was like early 2000s sometimes. So anyways, nice sale there, Heather.
Yeah, maybe just think of like, okay, I was thinking, what is it kids are into right now? I know little kids, this might be, usually it's like, I feel like the junior high age and stuff, like a little bit below then that ends up coming back and making it big. Okay. But I'm like, okay, what's big right now? Okay, well, there's obviously Bluey. I don't know if you're familiar with that show. Bluey, yeah. That show's huge. And then also all the little kids love Blippi. I thought like Blippi is like
Blippi's been around forever too.
Not that long, I don't feel
At
like.
least a decade. Because
No.
yeah, my 17-year-old was watching Blippi back in the day.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe.
Or maybe I just let him watch it for too long.
Maybe. So anyways, I'm like, I kind of feel like Blippi's almost in some ways like the Pee Wee Herman of today. Like different, more educational, but then that made me think like, I wonder if Pee Wee Herman stuff's worth anything.
Oh, it is.
And I'm like, holy cow. Yeah, there's definitely money in Pee Wee Herman stuff. So yeah, it just goes to show like all the stuff that was popular in the day, man. It comes back.
Now you also have to think of supply and demand. Obviously, Pee Wee Herman stuff is a lot harder to find than, let's say, Blippi's going to be, because there's so much Blippi stuff out there.
Yeah,
now.
but again, like 30 years from now.
Yeah, kids like destroyed all the toys.
Yeah, all the Blippi stuff. So it's like, yeah.
I can't believe we talked about Blippi.
Pee Wee Herman talking pull string doll in box, $120 plus $13 shipping.
Yeah, how much is the sofa? Did you see the sofa in there? What was the name of the sofa?
$50 plus 20. The Pee Wee Playhouse Cherry.
Is it Cherry? Oh,
Cherry.
yeah. There's nothing educational about that show.
That's true.
I used to love waking up Saturday mornings to watch it, though.
I never really watched it. I just watched the movies. I watched the movies.
I'm an old man, okay?
All right. Okay, so our next one is from Elsinore Picker from Discord. Went to a yard sale and came across a vintage iMac in decent condition. The owners didn't know much about wiping their disks, so used old Mac operating system software and was able to restore it to factory settings. Stated, by the way, when I saw this, I nearly burst my buttons. Love it with excitement.
So if you've listened to the podcast, you know what buttons means.
Buttons. So listed on eBay and sold a first Apple iMac G3 Bondi Blue computer operating system with keyboard for $299.99. That's a pretty good deal. Do you know what the cost was on that? You remember?
Oh, the cost was $5. Did I put that in the notes?
$5 to $300. Yeah, that's killer. It makes me not even want to talk about my hustle of the week. You guys are killing it out there.
But that's like everybody has different hustle of the week. Sometimes we get people in here that are like, oh, I made $15,000, right? Yeah. And then some people make 100 to 200, or some people make 30. 20. Yeah. It all depends where you're at in your reselling journey.
Yep. All right. What's your hustle of the week?
All right. So I had mentioned months ago where I picked up a bunch of Sports Illustrated for kids for the magazine for $5. Right. And the reason that people like these magazines, I mentioned that as a Bellow, is because there's card sheets inside. And you can take these card sheets and you can get them graded and you can sell them for more than, let's say, the magazine. Well, I had also stated that when I picked these up at a garage sale, I had an Instagram story and I was like, none of these are really vintage. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. And I had instantly all these people DM me like, I'll buy them off of you. I'll buy them off of you. So when people started saying that, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to sell. There must be something here I don't know about. So one day I think in December, when things were right after Q4 and kind of slow, I decided to list them. And I had like 50 of them and I sold some for 20. I sold some for 30. And I was like, wow, I turned $5 into several $100s. Well, I had one that had Zion Williamson, who right now he isn't actively playing, but Zion Williamson is popular and he's on the cover and there's a card sheet in there. And I saw that there was only 3 on there that were listed. The comps on there showed, one sold for 100, one for 125. Somebody was trying to sell one for like 1,000 or whatever. Well, then those all sold. And I was the only one there. And I'm like, okay, I don't think anybody's going to pay for 1,000, especially because Zion's not playing at this time. But I'm just going to throw it up there. So I listed it up there for $300. And I had my 50% sale running. And somebody paid $150 for my Sports Illustrated for Kids with Zion Williamson on the cover. Nice. Card sheet. So off that stack of 50 Sports Illustrated for Kids for $5, I probably have made, I want to say $700 or $800. Wow. That magazine alone, I sold for $150. So definitely keep an eye out, and you just never know. Yeah. You just never know.
Never know. It's good stuff.
All right, what is your hustle?
So mine is definitely not that big. I guess I'll throw a couple little small ones in there just to kind of balance it, I guess. So I'm still doing really well on Harry Potter minifigs that I bought. So I mentioned, I think it was probably a Bellow several weeks ago, that because the Harry Potter game that has come out on pretty much every console, it's pretty big. A lot of people are interested in it. A lot of my Harry Potter stuff has been kind of flying off the shelf. And my wife and I bought a bunch of Harry Potter and Marvel boxes at a big box store that was selling them basically at clearance. And I paid $5 per box. And each box of like little blister packs you open up has 20 metal figures. Like there's 10 different ones. You get 2 of each, right? Okay. And they were selling them, I think it was actually under $5. It was like 4 something because they were on clearance. And so my wife and I bought a ton of them. Well, the Marvel ones really haven't moved very much. We've sold a few. I let my son open up a bunch of them and play with them. But the Harry Potter ones have been sitting and we hadn't sold any of them. But since that game has come out, they've been moving. And so it's a hustle of the week in the sense of it was kind of a long tail. It wasn't a huge gamble because, you buy 10 boxes for, $40, not a big deal. And all of a sudden now they're selling easily at, $20 a pop. It starts to add up. And so one of those things like Marvel, maybe there's too much Marvel stuff out there that has been made. Harry Potter, there's a ton of Harry Potter stuff, but I don't feel like Harry Potter has had as much new things out recently. And then a new game kind of just pushes the stuff that is available up in the price. So that was good. And then I also sold a board game that I picked up. 2 of them brand new sealed. It was like $20 each, maybe less because I think I paid like $35 for both of them. And I just sold one of them for $70.
Nice.
And so the other one, if I sell that one for $70, then that's all profit because I already made my profit plus some. Yeah.
There you go. I mean, listen, hustle of the week.
Yeah. Take it.
Golden. All right. Hey, before we move on to other things that people get trapped in, I want you guys to keep an eye out for us on Twitter.
Oh no.
On Skull Shaver Twitter.
Oh geez.
So
here we go.
So I don't know when, but so I brought my
Skull Shaver. Yeah.
But I gotta tell you, it keeps it nice and clean. It's real easy. Keeps your percentages on there. It tells you how much until you got to charge again. But Skull Shaver has asked us to partake in their Bald of the Week campaign.
Yeah, so we have Hustle of the Week. They're going with Bald of the Week, and it's basically what they said is they're looking for models like us that are clearly just incredible looking individuals that don't have hair. I'm being redundant, I guess there, but they want to show off. So yeah, check out Twitter. Type in what would it be? Hashtag Bald of the Week.
Well, no, what Skull Shaver. So if they follow just Skull Shaver on Twitter, when it pops up, it'll come up. So it'll have maybe, I don't know if they're going to pick us, but
they might not pick us.
They wanted us to send in our photos.
If it was a competition, that'd be cool. Because then we could have all of our listeners vote for our dome.
Still blow us up on there. Like it. I don't know if you want to retweet. That would be kind of weird. But anyways, hey, if you haven't yet bought your your Skull Shaver, go on over to skullshaver.com, use our promo code Pure Hustle, and it'll give you a discount, and you'll be able to have a smooth dome like Mike and I at whatever occasion you need it for.
Yeah.
All right. So here's the trap that I find a lot of experienced sellers do this, and then they share this knowledge with newer sellers, and then everybody starts doing it, and they end up in this whole category of, well, things are just slow. And it's the idea of, you know what? My item is such a great item. I shouldn't have to promote it. I shouldn't have to run sales. I shouldn't have to do coupons, right? I priced it where it needs to be. It's at the bottom. It's priced competitively. It's a hard to find item. There's a following. And so they won't do it. They won't run sales. They won't promote. They won't, do coupons. And here's the thing. You might be right. Your item could be something that is going to sell on its own, but it may take longer to sell because eBay wants to make money. And one of the ways that eBay lately has said it makes money is through promotions, right? And so if eBay wants to do promotions, I strongly suggest you do promotions. I'm not saying go and do 8 to 10%. I do 2% across the board. Sometimes I may have items that I believe are more competitive, and so I might jump those to 4%, 6%, sometimes even higher if I need to, if it's a retail arbitrage item. But what ends up happening, they get in this trap, and eBay won't push your items high. They'll end up low in the search. They may have a great item, but they just aren't selling. And the reason they're not selling is because there are plenty of other people that are running sales. Because if you run a sale, eBay will boost you in the algorithm. If you have coupons, eBay will boost you. If you do promoted listings, eBay will boost you. If you do nothing, the only thing that's going to get that person to your item is by directly typing in that item, and you're like the only person that sells that specific item. I don't know. Where do you land on this?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to think really the only thing in here that's not related to being the most competitive priced is the promoted listing. Everything else really just comes down to pricing. Like you might put something at a certain price, but if you're not promoting it or I'm sorry, if you're not running a sale on it, you're not offering coupon or just adjusting your price to make sure that it's the lowest total price, you're competing against people, and you might not even realize it. You might not realize that, hey, there's a bunch of these items listed at a certain price. I'm going to list mine at the same price. But if you don't see that, hey, they've got a coupon running, I've actually clicked on it and see that you can apply a coupon, or that store is running a sale, you might think you're competitively priced, but you're not. So you really want to make sure that you're competitively priced. So things like coupons, things like sales, really just make it kind of falls in line with, are you really competitive? The other aspect, which is the promoted listings, that one's a little bit more like, sucks, but you kind of have to do what you have to do. And it's true. We've heard people are probably going to comment on this one. If you've got the right items, you don't need to promote. And that's probably true. If you've got the only one of a really rare guitar, or you're the only one of a certain type of item, you probably don't need to promote it because you're the only person that's got that item that people are looking for. Or it's such a sought after thing and it's not flooded. But if you're competing with like the same kind of shoe, the same kind of whatever, and there's a bunch of other people that have similar stuff, eBay is going to push the stuff that's promoted. They just will. So yes, if you've got the one of a kind collectible item, you probably don't need to promote it. But if you've got something that's collectible, but it's not like super rare, super one of a kind, promoting it is going to make a difference for sure. The next one, and this one's tough for a lot of people, and really it's tough probably for everybody to take a realistic reflection on where you're at on it, but is organization. If you're not willing to spend the time, you fall into the trap of thinking like, hey, everything's working and I'm just going to leave this stuff out, and I just bought this stuff and I'm just going to put the things I haven't listed in this pile and it's going to be fine. And you can easily fall into a trap where before long, that little pile turns into a big pile, and then you can't find your tape gun and you're not sure where the boxes are. And oh wait, I'm out of that size box and I totally forgot to order new ones. And where's that item that just sold? A little mess turns into a big mess pretty quickly. And, spending a little bit of time every day on organization, along with occasional like revamping of your organizational structure, is crucial in order to stay profitable and save time. And I think part of that is just spend the 10, 15 minutes it takes to actually clean up stuff, put stuff in the right spots. It's so easy to get an item and be like, oh, this just fits on this shelf for now, just put it there. And then you forget and you don't custom SKU it or all of those things. And then also, if you started off where, half of this shelf was shoes and then the top half of this shelving unit was clothes, and before long you've outgrown that. And then now your organization system that made sense a month ago, a year ago, no longer makes sense. And so every once in a while, you're going to have to do kind of a restructure, reorganizing. And again, just imagine your business. I worked at Target. I know probably most of our listeners have done some kind of retail at some point or something similar, or have been in a retail store. And you see, like, I used to always get frustrated. Like, why are they always moving things? These end caps are moving to these end caps. So the seasonal section's out. It's okay. I understand seasonal moving, but things move all the time. You go into a store and you're like, man, where did they move this stuff? They moved it over here. And part of it is because they're doing the numbers and they know what products need to be visible, what products need to be moved, what products need to, and they're constantly changing things. And if big stores are having to do that, how much more are we needing to do that in order to stay profitable?
Agreed. And the thing is, you can get very overwhelmed. Like even right now, I feel overwhelmed. I did promise to Mike that the podcast room would be empty, but yeah, it's not. There's inventory in the podcast room. My eBay room is looking pretty rough right now. And here's the thing. It's a trap, because what ends up happening is you slowly begin to not want to resell anymore, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed. I have stuff everywhere. I don't feel like listing. And instead of it motivating you to list, it actually works against you, because you feel like it's overtaking you. So you just want to escape reselling. You'll go outsourcing, because then when you're sourcing, you don't have to look at your death files, right? You'd rather go hang out and do whatever instead of listing, because if you're listing, that means you're actually paying attention to inventory you haven't taken care of. And so you don't want to get in that trap, because you get in a trap of having a ton of money that you spent that you are not making any money on. It's just sitting there. And you could have some items that are worth big money that you've forgotten about, because there is a time where you could source so much, you forget what you source. And I've been there many times. It still happens to me all the time. And so make sure you do not get in the trap of like, oh, I'm just going to put things wherever, I'll organize it eventually. Or the trap of just always running death piles. If I could start things all over from brand new, I would never have death piles. I just wouldn't. but unfortunately yeah, there's no hope. There's no hope. Again, I'm falling into my own traps. Don't listen to me. All right, here's the last one. Trying to copy other resellers. I think this is the one that burns a lot of people because they try to be like other resellers. And so a few examples here. One is they try to buy what the other resellers are buying all the time. But here's the thing. If you're in a different place geographically, that might be really hard. Or they may have been reselling for a long time, and so they developed the following. They have a customer base, so they could sell things a lot faster than you could. You could list it, and you may not sell that item. So, for example, right now, if I find certain model railroad trains or Hot Wheels, I will sell those within a couple of days because I have a good customer base that they're always, looking at my store every day, what's new on there. And so as soon as something pops up, hey, Orlando, I bought from you before. What do you think about bundling all these items and selling it? And I'll sell it. Not everybody has that advantage, and it's because that took some time to build. Or you might go, I looked at this and let's go to Amazon. I see this Amazon FBA seller. They're, $1 million seller. They make $1 million in sales. And you're like, wow, I would love to be a millionaire. But the reality is that person probably is only making 10% net in that million. So yeah, 100,000, pretty good. Right. But at the same time, they have the ability to do that, right? They may have the warehouse. They may have the time. They may have the geographic space to do that. And so you have to do what works in your business, because you can fall in this trap of trying to be like everybody else. You get into this trap of, well, I should be like this one seller. And if I just sell a certain amount of items every day for this amount of money, I'm going to be just like them. And the reality is that may not happen. The algorithm may treat you different than that person because that person has been selling for a long time. So what I encourage you to do is find what works for your business, right? Find what works for your sourcing. Find what works as far as what it takes to turn that sale. Find what works for you as far as capital and the amount of money you're able to spend. Because if you try to mimic a lot of people online, there's a lot you don't know. You don't know what those 90-day totals mean. You don't know what their family situation is. You don't know what their financial situation is. I know personally some resellers that are well off, and they were well off before they were a reseller. So the fact that they're doing okay isn't because of necessarily reselling. They just were well off before, and now they decided just to do reselling on the side because they enjoyed it. They wanted to grow a YouTube channel, whatever it is. So make sure to stay focused.
That's right.
So did you want to add any more to that one?
No, I think that's good. I think, you can't compare yourself to other people. You can't even really compare yourself to yourself a lot of times. Like you can when you're doing reflections to an extent. But again, like we talked about earlier in the podcast, if you're trying to compare this year to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, without looking at it with how can I make adjustments? How have I grown as a reseller? What have I learned? But yeah, if you think you can just copy and paste, it's not A plus B equals C every single time in reselling. And so if it doesn't work with yourself with, hey, I used to source VCRs and sell this many if I listed this many and I was profitable, it's definitely not going to work if you try and input somebody else's exact style or methodology or even their interests. Sometimes people are really interested in something. I see that was like a tongue twister. I was almost at a Sally sells seashells. I see shoe sellers. Try and say that 10 times fast. I see shoe sellers occasionally and I'm like, man, they seem to be killing it. They know a ton of it. Maybe I should learn about shoes. I'm not a sneakerhead. I don't like sneakers. Not that I have anything against people who are into sneakers, but that's just not my passion. And so I can look at that and say, I could be really profitable if I got into sneakers. But if it's not you,
if there's no passion there, you're going to struggle.
Yep.
And, Mike and I have talked about in the early days, we used to source stuff all the time just because I knew somebody that said these were profitable. In my early days, I did a lot of that. I'd watch YouTube and I'm like, all right, I'm going to try to source what this person does. And sometimes it's good. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes you're able to find those items. But and in time, you could maybe, make that profitable for yourself. But like Mike said, it's very important to go into a field that you're passionate about. And also not only that, but go into a field that that it's part of like your everyday, right? Like Mike and I are educators. So, you know, I'm very big on like vintage stuff, right? Because I like knowing the story and I like knowing how things came about. Some of you may be, let's say, into skateboarding, right? And so you may not be into, let's say, Jordans, but you may be into skate shoes. And there's some skate shoes that make a lot of money in reselling. So don't get caught into that trap of trying to copy others. So hopefully this episode definitely brought a lot of value to you into what traps not to fall into, but motivated you that, listen, you can make it in reselling, that you can definitely be profitable even in this time economically and make things happen. With that being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Peace.